Hello, this is a road, one that appears to be fairly ordinary. But what if I told you that this ordinary road, despite being a narrow single carriageway, was once a motorway? Looking at it, yeah, fair enough, it's a tough sell, but between 1987 and 2006, this road was very much a motorway known as the A6144M or the Carrington Spur. At the time, it was one of a kind in England because a single carriageway motorway with no barrier in the middle is a terrible idea, so it wasn't duplicated anywhere else. But if it was such a bad idea, why did it exist in the first place? In the old days, the plan for the A6144M was a little more extensive, where it would have been part of the M60, which was not the M60 that we know today. Back then, the M60 was something completely different, and if built, it would have taken a route a bit like this, with the A6144M making up a small section in the middle. This plan, along with several others, were ultimately cancelled in the end. No one thought building infrastructure in the north of England was that important, so they didn't bother. That said, some motorways were built, including what was known at the time as the M62. This motorway would run from today's Junction 7 on the M60 to Junction 23 on the M62. Yeah, it's quite confusing. There's been a lot of motorway number changes in the area over the years. We'll try not to worry about it. What we care about is Junction 7, where a motorway terminated, causing no end of problems for the town of Sale and its surrounding area. The problem was that all of the traffic was making its way to and from this newly opened motorway, and to get there it was all heading through the centre of Sale. But that wasn't the only problem. A short distance away to the west was a huge industrial complex at the time owned by Shell, and they used the site to develop and manufacture various toxic or hazardous chemicals which would then be loaded onto a truck and sent out for delivery. But these truckloads of hazardous chemicals were driving through the centre of a town and built-up area, right past the hospital, old person's home and children's play area, with things only one driver not paying attention away from the equivalent of biological warfare raining down on Sale. So what would be rather jolly then is a road that allows for this hazardous traffic to access the motorway without having to pass through the town centre. And whilst working out where to build it, they realised that they already had the solution contained within those old plans for the M60, which never happened. The proposed route for the unbuilt M60 ran in the perfect direction for what they had in mind, so if it had already been deemed suitable for a motorway, that made life easy. All they did was cut off the bits of the unbuilt M60 that they didn't want, and the plan for the Carrington Spur was created most likely by photocopying some of those old plans. Unfortunately, whilst the plan was to build a proper dual carriageway motorway spur, we noticed that we didn't get that, and that's because the budget failed to meet the expectation. They really wanted to build this road, but it looked like the only way for it to happen was for them to make some serious compromises, so we ended up with a single carriageway road built to the lowest possible standard that could later be upgraded if funds became available. But why did it open as a motorway? Because it had to, and there's a couple of reasons. The main one is that the road connects to a motorway with no other route options. It's motorway or not at all, and you don't want non-motorway traffic accidentally joining the motorway. But also, the junction they built with the Carrington Spur was crap. It had two tiny roundabouts which didn't allow larger vehicles to turn back should they have come up there by mistake, and you don't want Farmer Giles and his tractor getting stuck or joining the motorway, so the theory was motorway regulations would prevent that, at least for the most part. There was also an outside chance that one day the Carrington Spur would not only be upgraded to a dual carriageway but extended, but let's not waste our time, that didn't happen. Instead, what we got was the country's only single carriageway motorway running for about 1.5 miles, featuring no hard shoulders and instead some emergency lay-bys, with a crap junction at one end and a set of traffic lights at the other. And that's how it was until 2006, when things all changed. The M60 was widened, and at the same time, the Carrington Spur junction was redesigned to make it better. Gone were the shit roundabouts to be replaced by one larger roundabout, and this meant that if Farmer Giles did bring his tractor down there, he could now at least go around the roundabout and back the way he came. Happy days. However, given that there was now a viable escape route, it didn't make all that much sense to retain the motorway restrictions, but mostly the local council wanted the restrictions removed because things like simple maintenance and access was months of paperwork, so the road was downgraded from a motorway to become a normal A road. However, an A road that is still restricted to non-motorway traffic like horses and pedestrians. Whilst the motorway restrictions may no longer be in place, the road is, and it's still pretty much as it was back in the day. So now, if you're ever driving along the Carrington Spur, you'll know that it was once the maddest one-of-a-kind motorways in the country. What's that? Head-on collisions and accidents? Yeah, loads. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you liked the video. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye.